Hello everybody, welcome back to another video on my channel. I know it's been a while, but I'm gonna predict the NFL playoffs as they start tomorrow, so I thought I would give my predictions. So for the first part of this, I put the Chiefs and the Packers in their respective spots since, as we know, there's an extra seed this year. However, only one team is getting a bye, so I put them in their respective spots and they'll have home field throughout the playoffs. So for the first game, I'm going to give my prediction for the Buccaneers versus the Saints. So I've been thinking about this for a while, and I didn't know if Kamara and Thomas would be available, but it looks like they're going to play, so I'm going to pick the Saints. I was thinking that this game could be an upset because the Saints have had their playoff struggles throughout the years, and they did lose in the wild card round last year. And as we've seen this year, Drew Brees has regressed in terms of his arm strength, and this offense has become very reliant on Alvin Kamara. So if he wasn't playing, I think the Bears would have a great chance to win this. I think Alvin Kamara is that much of a difference maker for this team. In addition, I think this could have been an upset because the Saints defense did look iffy to finish the season, but I think the Saints are going to win because at the same time you have to ask yourself, do you really trust Mitch Trubisky to go on the road at New Orleans and win a tough playoff game? And I'm going to say no. The Saints defense has still been very strong this year. They're fourth in yards allowed, and they're only allowing 21.1 points per game. The Bears, however, did score 36 against the Texans, 27 on the Vikings, and 41 on the Jaguars. But those teams aren't very good. Minnesota, you could argue, probably the most disappointing team in the league this year. The Texans are an absolute dumpster fire along with the Jaguars. I wonder what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson over there, but I think Trubisky is going to struggle, and that's the ultimate reason why I'm picking the Saints to win. So they're going to go over here. Next game, we have the Seahawks and the Rams. So this game also has upset potential just because the Seahawks offense has not looked good these last couple of weeks to finish out the season, and the Rams defense has been the best defensive unit all year long. They've been going strong. They just got Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald named to the first team All-Pro selections. If you take out the 40-point performance against the Jets, if you include that, they're averaging 23.5 points per game. The Seahawks are on offense in the final 6 weeks. And that's with a healthy Russell Wilson, a healthy Tyler Lockett, healthy DK Metcalf, healthy Chris Carson. So something's not right with their offense. The Rams definitely have the defense to stop them. First in yards allowed, first in points allowed. They're locking people down. As I said before, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, even some other guys on the defense like Troy Hill, who's also been very good. However, the Rams, they don't know who their quarterback is going to be. Sean McVay is not going to announce it. It could be John Wolford. It could be Jared Goff. And in the end, I think this game is going to come down to who do I trust more at quarterback? Do I trust Wolford or Goff, or do I trust Russell Wilson to make big plays and get his team a win? I trust Russell Wilson, so I'm going to be picking the Seahawks to beat the Rams, and they will go to New Orleans and play the Saints in the second round. Last game of the NFC wildcard, we have the Washington football team versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All the games in the NFC wildcard, in my opinion, had upset potential. This one probably the biggest, just because we've seen how a 43-year-old Tom Brady has fared against teams that put a lot of pressure on him. He doesn't like to get hit, and just like any other quarterback, if you get pressure on him, he's going to make mistakes. This game definitely has the most potential for an upset, as I said before, just because of how Brady could struggle against good pass rushes. And some examples of this include both of their matchups versus New Orleans. The second one was the worst performance of the year for the Buccaneers, only scoring 3 points. They also barely beat Minnesota. They lost to Chicago. They almost lost to New York. And they had some trouble with the Falcons. And all those, what do all those teams have in common? They all have pretty good to elite pass rushes. But ultimately, I don't think the Washington football team is going to produce enough offense. They could be starting Taylor Heineke, they could start Alex Smith, or they could just rotate both. And I think that's just a recipe for disaster, especially in the playoffs, not knowing firmly who your quarterback is going to be or not being able to rely on one guy. So I think the Buccaneers are going to win this one close. It could be a 2017 type of game, 23, 17, 20-ish. It's not going to be a blowout. It's going to be really close. but I think Tampa Bay wins it, and they'll go to Green Bay and face the Packers, as they are the lowest seed remaining in the bracket, so that the Packers will play them. Moving on to the AFC wild card. The first game that I'm going to go over is the Bills versus the Colts. And I am picking the Buffalo Bills to win that game, as I think that they are the hottest team in the league right now. If you take out the Hail Mary against the Arizona Cardinals, they would have finished the season 10-0. They were lighting everyone up. Their defense was playing well, and Josh Allen is probably the most confident player in the league right now. He thinks he can beat anyone. And I think the Colts' limitations are just going to get exposed in the playoffs, mainly that being Phillip Rivers. He's always been a risk taker. He doesn't really care what the outcome will be. He'll throw up any pass. I think his lack of mobility is definitely going to get exposed. Maybe his arm strength, and just the fact that he turns the ball over sometimes, and that the Colts are limited at quarterback. But they have the running game. They could make it close, and their defense has been one of the best in the league. But I just think the Bills are going to handle their business at home. First playoff game for them. And I think they'll be looking to avenge what they did last year in the playoffs against the Texans, when they had a 16-0 lead and they ultimately lost to Deshaun Watson and the Texans. So I think the Bills are going to handle their business and beat the Colts. Next game we have is Steelers and Browns. This game I thought could have been an upset, because Cleveland's running game, they arguably have the best rushing attack in the league, either them or the Ravens. But as we found out earlier in the week, they will not have Kevin Stefanski, and they will not have All-Pro guard Joel Bitonio. Both are out due to COVID-19 related situations, so Stefanski can't coach. Baker's missing one of his best O-linemen. And when I look at Baker, I don't think he's a good enough quarterback to overcome losses on the offense. He needs a fully healthy offensive line. He needs at least one number one wide receiver. And I think although the Browns have had a great season this year, they've finally snapped their 18-year-long playoff drought, making it to the playoffs for the first time since 2002. I think they are, however, going to lose to the Steelers in their first game. But regardless, great season for the Browns. But the Steelers are going to win, and they will go on to play Buffalo at Buffalo. Final wild card game we have is the Titans and the Ravens. This one is going to be an upset, and I think Baltimore is going to win. I just think it's their time. They're red hot right now, and since the Baltimore's 5-0 win streak, Baltimore finished the season on a 5-game winning streak. They're averaging 37 points per game over those 5 games, and their defense is playing absolutely terrific football. And they haven't been playing the best of competition, but they did, however, beat the Browns in that 47-42 shootout on Monday Night Football, so they can hang with good teams. And I think they're finally going to find a way to at least contain Derrick Henry, who's been their kryptonite. He beat them in overtime earlier this year. He also beat them last year in their divisional playoffs. And more importantly, the Ravens are the underdogs now. They don't have all the pressure on them of winning. No one thinks they're going to win, although some people do, but most people are probably rolling with the Titans just because of how unstoppable Derrick Henry is. But I think the Ravens get it done. The Titans had a great year. Ryan Tannehill resurgence at quarterback, and I just think Tennessee's defense took a big step back from what it was last year. They just haven't been good enough, and I think Baltimore gets a much needed playoff win on Lamar's resume, and they'll go on to face Kansas City in the divisional round. So now we have the divisional round in the NFC, and I'm going to start with the Packers and the Buccaneers. And the team I'm picking to win this game is the Packers, because they are at home and they are off a bye, so they are well rested. And I think Tampa Bay's roster is relatively inexperienced, because I'm pretty sure after the Browns, they had one of the longest playoff droughts in the NFL. So they aren't exactly playoff ready. I just think they'll get a playoff win just because they'll be playing the Washington football team in their first game. But I think their inexperience is ultimately going to hurt them. Of course, Brady has tons of playoff experience, the most playoff experience of probably anyone in the league. But I just think it's going to be a tough matchup for the Packers. They'll probably have Mike Evans. That's a big question mark, but I think Jair Alexander is going to be a tough, really, really tough matchup for him. They played each other earlier in the season, I know that, but Jair Alexander put the clamps on him. He held him to a very rough game, and I think he can do it again, especially coming off that ugly injury that Mike Evans suffered in week 17 with what looked like a hyperextension in his knee. In addition, for the Buccaneers, Antonio Brown hasn't exactly been the splash that they hoped he would be, and I think that's going to be a big problem for Tampa as they try to advance in the playoffs. Of course, they do have Chris Godwin and Scotty Miller, but I honestly don't know how good they're going to be in the postseason. In addition, I think the Packers have shown that they can be a good physical defense, as they played the Titans a few weeks ago and they were able to hold Derrick Henry to under 100 yards rushing, and I think they can do that with Tampa Bay's backfield and Ronald Jones, and I think they can ultimately get the win at home thanks to their defense, them being well rested, and Aaron Rodgers being the MVP that he is. I don't think he's going to be one and done in the playoffs. I think there's too much at stake for him, and he's going to get this win, and they'll go and play the NFC Championship at home. So next game we have is the New Orleans Saints versus the Seahawks. And this might be considered an upset, but I'm going to pick the Seahawks. I think that Russell Wilson can go to New Orleans and get a big win, though, and I think the Seahawks will be confident after beating the Rams. They know they can beat a tough defense. They'll be able to get their offense back in shape, and I think they can take advantage of some of the Saints' holes that they've shown on defense over the last few weeks of the season, just with all the talent they have on offense. In addition, this isn't really the best reason to pick the Saints to lose, but I've just seen it too many years now where the Saints come up short in the playoffs, and I don't think this year gives me any reason to think it's not going to happen again, especially with the regression in Drew Brees. So I think the Seahawks are going to upset the Saints at home and go to Green Bay for the NFC Championship game. Next, in the wild card, we have the Kansas City Chiefs against the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to pick the Chiefs just because similar reasons for the Packers. Well rested at home. They got Mahomes, they got Kelsey, they have Andy Reid. But unlike Green Bay, the Chiefs entered the playoffs kind of on a dry spell a little bit. Their offense has been looking shaky, especially that game against the Falcons. And in addition, they did beat New Orleans at the Superdome, but if you look at the stats in that game it shouldn't have been as close as it was. Time of possession, the Chiefs had won. I'm pretty sure they outgained them in yards, so they've been looking kind of shaky, but I do think they get the win against Baltimore. I just don't think Lamar is ready to go on the road at Kansas City and win 2 playoff games in the same season, although I think it'll be a big accomplishment for him if he does it. But I think that the Chiefs will get this win, and they will host the AFC Championship game in Kansas City at Arrowhead. Final game of the divisional round, we have the Bills and the Steelers. This is a pretty easy pick for me. I'm picking the Bills. I never bought into the Steelers all year with their record. They had a very easy schedule, and you could argue that they probably should have had some losses due to bad calls that the refs missed. Their offense just hasn't looked explosive all year. Ben isn't pushing the ball down the field. Their running game has been basically non-existent, and they just don't make big enough plays. And they'll be missing some pieces on their defense, such as Devin Bush and Spillane, that I think are ultimately going to hurt them against Buffalo. And I think the Bills, they'll be ready, they'll be focused, and they'll handle their business at home against the Steelers. And then they will go to the AFC Championship and face the Chiefs. Championship weekend, we have the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks and the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. And for the NFC, I'm picking the Packers. I think they'll be at home for the first time in an NFC Championship game since Rodgers has been their quarterback. They've had home playoff games before, but they've never been in a position where the playoffs essentially run through them and people have to go to Green Bay. I think Green Bay's offense is going to be on point and sharp during this game. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are going to have their usual connection. Aaron Jones should have a good game. And I also think Jair Alexander is going to have a huge impact on this game. And I think he's going to match up well against DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a beast, but I think Jair Alexander should give him some trouble. And I think Jair Alexander was really good this year. In my opinion, I thought he should have been first team All-Pro over Jalen Ramsey, but that's a different discussion for another day. And in addition, I think that this is Rodgers' year to win it all. I just have a feeling about Green Bay. I think they're going to the Super Bowl. And of course, that'll be on a neutral field, so we will see how they will play on the road in that game, but I just think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. And then for the last game in the playoffs, the AFC Championship game, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. My pick, I'm rolling with the Buffalo Bills. I think I don't know if this is a long shot, but I think the Bills have looked great all year. They look unstoppable on offense. Josh Allen is supremely confident, and if the Bills beat the Colts and the Steelers, two teams with elite defenses, on their home turf in the playoffs, I think their confidence will be sky high going to Arrowhead because they know they can compete with the Chiefs. They played the Chiefs earlier in the year, and although they lost, it was a pretty close game. They only lost by 9. It was 26-17. I just think the Bills' offense is red hot, and the Chiefs' offensive struggles, I think, will ultimately come back to bite them in this game. And in no way am I saying that Patrick Mahomes is a worse quarterback than Josh Allen. I just think that Josh Allen will be in a more comfortable spot heading into this game, winning 2 playoff games against 2 elite defenses. And I think he's going to be able to get it done against the Chiefs, and Buffalo will march to the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. So ultimately for the Super Bowl, this is going to be a really fun matchup, 2 elite offenses. This could be a shootout in this Super Bowl because these defenses are pretty good, but they're not elite. But however, I'm going to pick the Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers going to a second Super Bowl, he knows how important this is for his legacy. If he gets 2 rings, he will definitely be elevated in the discussion of quarterbacks in terms of the GOAT discussion. And I think the moment won't be too big for him. He knows how to go win big games. And I think this is ultimately going to be where Josh Allen falls. It's the Super Bowl. He will definitely go again sometime in his career. He's young. He's going to get multiple chances. But I think you can think of this year for the Bills as them being overachievers. Nobody thought they were going to be this good. Even if they go to the Super Bowl and lose, that's still going to be a very successful season for them. I'm picking the Packers. I think they're going to win it all. I think Aaron Rodgers wins regular season MVP. He'll win the Super Bowl, might win Super Bowl MVP, who knows? But yeah, those are my predictions for the 2021 postseason, which starts tomorrow at the time of this recording. Enjoy the playoffs. Let me know what you think of my predictions. Make sure to follow my Instagram at sportsandstuff03. The link will be in the bio. Follow my TikTok, which will also be in the bio. It's new. I started posting videos on there too. You can also follow me on Twitter, which will also be in the description of this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for your time.